Hi, sluts. Welcome to another episode of the Saint Slut podcast. So happy to be joining you here today. I think it has been a very lusty week. It's been a lot of the kind of ultra violent sort of vibe, and I'm really feeling it, really enjoying it. I'm not really sure why, but feeling in the thralls of love and lust really does make me feel so creative. So I've actually been working on a fiction story that I want to start posting on my Patreon. I'm not really sure if people will be into it, but I just love that feeling of I loved when I was like 12 years old in my tweens, my early teens. I loved reading fan fiction, and just like that feeling of waiting for a new story, a new chapter to come out was so exciting. So I want to try and emulate that feeling on my Patreon. Also, I posted a whole bunch of my old writing, some old poems on my Patreon. So definitely go check it out if you're feeling up to it. But this podcast episode is going to be about an essay that I wrote and I put on my Substack. I'm on a lot, so I feel like Substack is just my essays that I want everyone to read. Maybe I'll add some tiers on there, so if you want, so I can post some of my more intimate things. I just like to have behind a paywall. What can I say? Patreon, posting a lot of really intimate writing, some of just my thoughts, and also I have one of my tiers is Saint Smut, so I post some really horny things on there, and I feel like that's kind of what Saint Smut is about. It's just being a horny girl. This is somebody called me a femcel recently. I'm like, maybe I am. Maybe I need to be the face of the Gunat movement. I don't know. I'm not saying I am. Shit. Um. Anyways, how are we? Yeah. So this episode, this is a story that I haven't told in a long time. It's about when I was 16 years old, and I ran away to New York by myself. Well, not entirely alone, but we'll get into it. 10 years ago when this happened, it will be 10 years this summer. I remember, I believe it was July 22nd that I did this, and maybe this is a great way for me to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of me running away. But back then, this was like one of my favorite stories to share. But it's been a really long time since I've talked about it, so coming back at it from an adult perspective, I have no regrets, honestly. So it started when I was 15 years old, and my parents took me on a cruise ship. And I don't think that cruise ships are the best way to travel, but it was just kind of one of those things where my parents were doing it for their 20th year anniversary. And so they brought me and my sister with. And they allowed me to do whatever I wanted on this cruise ship. And I don't know why. I would only see them at dinner time. And I would just go off on my own because I had actually, there was a teen club on the cruise, like a teen lounge where they would have just like events and like allow the teens on the cruise ship to hang out. And I ended up really bonding with this Australian girl. Her name's Amelia. I only met her then. I actually still follow her on Instagram, and she still goes on cruises, which I think is so fun because it was really a substantial week in my life and really put a lot into perspective for me. Even though, like I said, it's not my ideal mode of travel, I think it really helped me to realize that traveling is my one true love. I am a Sagittarius at the end of the day. I'm a Sag, so I do love traveling and always trying to philosophize whatever I'm going through. And it's kind of corny sometimes because, like, sometimes there's not deeper meaning to everything, but I'm always trying to find it. Anyways, so I met this girl, Amelia, and her and I actually initially bonded over us thinking this English guy was super cute, and he was a very handsome young man, and he had the biggest suite on the entire cruise, and we both thought he was cute, and that's what we bonded over. And the rest was history. We spent that entire week together and had such a good time. And it's so interesting, the characters that you meet in passing, you know Like, obviously, she lives in Australia, and God, if I ever see her again, but that fleeting moment on that cruise ship, we were best friends. We kind of formed a group on the cruise where there was a couple other Australian kids and a few American kids that we would hang out with. And I felt embarrassed because I was 15 and the kids I was hanging out with were like 13 and 14. And there was another group of teens on the cruise who were closer to my age, but they were all cool and stuff. So they didn't want to hang out with me. And not that I wasn't cool, but just they had their own group, and they were kind of gatekeeping. So it's fine. And I felt embarrassed at that time, but at some point I had to like let that go and realize that this week, it was only 1 week, and nothing that happened there would matter after the fact. And I think realizing that, like, I was able to bring that into the rest of my life, because I realized that nothing really matters. At the end of the day, nothing matters. This life is that 1 week long cruise that eventually you're going to leave. So be friends with the people who embrace you. Point blank, period. There was one guy in the group that I would hang out with, and his name, we would call him Jax. And he was closer to my age, and nothing happened on that cruise. We flirted maybe a little bit, but I think we were both so young, and he was actually 17. Cute kid. He had this dyed blonde hair, roots exposed, very Tumblr boy. And actually, he was, of the group of people that I hung out with, he was the one who lived closest in proximity to me. So nothing ever happened, but following the cruise, we texted for months on end. And as it turned out, he lived in New York part-time, because that's where his father lived. And then the rest of the time, he lived in Florida. And his dad was an investment banker. So every weekend, he would party like it was Gossip Girl. He would ask me whether I thought that he should hook up with a guy or a girl that weekend, because he was bisexual. And I think that bisexual men kind of have a special place in my heart. Like, I think that they are, of any man, they know how to speak to women, and they know what we're seeking and what we desire. And granted, I know there's some toxic ones, but man, are they good lovers. Besides the point, he is the one that really exposed me to this idea that promiscuity is very sexy, and having multiple partners and being in touch with your sexuality is what is really hot. And I agreed with him. And even though I had never really thought about a relationship with a bisexual man before, I just really liked this idea of it on him. He wore it so well, and he was just this party boy who was extremely wealthy and fucked a lot. But anyways, so he would party on the weekends, hook up with someone, and then we talk about it. We debrief on Monday. Finally, at some point, he invited me to a party. He was going to host the after party for Rihanna's concert. It was at a really nice hotel. I almost want to say the Waldorf, but I'm not really familiar with New York hotels. I grew up in Philadelphia. So he invited me to this party. And of course, I was like, oh my God, like I have to go. By the way, at this point, I was 16. So this was several months after the cruise. And I was like, I have to go. I have to go to this party. By hell or high water, I'm going to the Rihanna after party. And so I asked two of my friends if they would go with me. And my one friend, she's so like, she has the socialite energy. Like, that girl has charisma. And my other friend is like more street smart. So I had two friends that I was going to go with. Any more than that, I think it would have been a problem, because, you don't want too many people to account for. And I was like, okay, how am I going to get to New York City from Philly? I hatched a plan. Me and my friends would often go to concerts in the city. So I told my parents I'm going to go to a concert in the city I'll come home that night, stay over at my friend's house. Instead, I would take a bus from Philadelphia to New York and go to this party. Immediately after I had this plan, I had my crew to go with. I went to school the next day and was telling everybody at the lunch table I was invited to a party in New York because I wanted everybody to know. And I thought that this was endgame for me. I thought that I would go to this party in New York, mingle with all these rich elite New Yorkers, work my way up to the top of the social ladder and be the next Kim K. I thought that's how it was going to go. Like in my 16-year-old mind, that was what I thought was going to happen. Not too long before the party, Jax and I never spoke again. But one of the girls who I had told at school, who was a friend of mine, we had known each other for many years, hadn't hung out in a long time though. She loved this idea of going to New York. She was like, I want to go with you. But of course, the plans fell through. So it never happened. But come summer comes around and she's like, I still really want to go to New York, just the two of us. And I said, sure, why not? So I went over to her house. We figured out all the logistics, and July 22nd came around and we did it. I was wearing this like pencil skirt. I was wearing these gladiator thin, cardboard thin sandals and a halter top. Oh my God. My parents should have known right then and there that I was doing something that I should not have been doing. 9 a.m., we took the bus into Philly, went to the Greyhound station that is off of, I think it's Arch Street in Center City. And we got on the bus and went to New York. And we didn't have any bus tickets ahead of time. So we get to the city, crazy, and we didn't really have a plan. We just kind of walked around. And we got a little lost at one point. We took a wrong train and ended up in Harlem. And the whole time we were like, we're going to meet people. It may not be the Rihanna after party, but we are going to find a party to go to. Anyway, so we got lost. That took up some time, and finally, like we make it back to Central Park. We walk around Central Park. We, get food. We sit down at this L'Amico. It was called. I wonder if that's still there. It was like this little pizza restaurant, and finally, it must be around 6 o'clock. We are like, all right, let's head back. Let's get back home. We go to the Port Authority, and the last bus had already left. We were stuck. There's no way home. We would go to another bus station. There's no way home. And you know what? I don't remember feeling any sense of panic. I was just like, this is okay, and I'm going to be all right. I was never scared at any single point. I texted my friends that were back at home, the ones who I was originally supposed to go with on this little excursion, and they were so mad at me. They were like, why would you do that? Like, your parents must be so nervous. Your parents must be so worried. My parents didn't know, of course. And so we find a 24-hour diner and we sit there for a few hours, probably until like 10 p.m. It was probably like 7. We sit there for a few hours. They hand us the check and pretty much tell us to leave, because all we had bought was like a thing of fries. I had run out of money and my thighs were like chafing. I was a little bit heavier back then and my thighs were chafing. So my friend had actually bought me. I did not. I went with like $80. I had $80 to my name. And I needed a pair of pants because my legs were chafing. My friend ended up buying them for me. I paid her back. I did after the fact. So eventually we got kicked out of the diner. We find a cafe that was open, and we walk a few blocks, and suddenly everything opens up and we're in this huge, beautiful, lit area with very few people, and it was Times Square. And we sit in Times Square for the rest of the evening and kind of just looking at the stars. And I just remember, one, feeling so small in that moment. And, well, first of all, we couldn't see any stars because it was New York, but looking up at the sky, the open black sky, and feeling so small and just feeling like, one, alive, because I had felt really, really confined where I lived. And suffocated, like I couldn't do anything. And from a young age, if you can't tell, I really wanted to have freedom and do the things that my heart called to. And in a sense, I absolutely empathize with that younger version of myself, but I wish that I wouldn't have rushed to be grown so fast, because I miss being young now. I don't, I love, I love telling this story because it's just so coming of age, but I was very much so Lady Bird. If you have ever seen that movie, I was Lady Bird. Anyways, so we sat in Times Square. I remember we met so many interesting characters. A guy, his name was Gilbert. He was from Brazil, and he was a bartender at a gay bar, but swore he wasn't gay. I think not. Yeah, either way, it's fine. But we met a guy who said that he had just was coming back from Ti's party, Ti's daughter's 16th birthday party, and he like tried to take a picture of us, but I like put my hand over his lens, and then I met another guy, and he came out to us, and he was like trying to get at us, and I said we're 16. He was like, no, you're not. And this is when I learned that, because when I was 16 and clearly older men would hit on me, I would tell them I'm 16, thinking that it would turn them away, but literally 10 out of 10 times it did not. Never did that actually turn them away. And so he was still trying to get at us. And when I was like, no, like, we're not interested, he turned to he was like, actually, I'm interested in your friend. So can you just, and my friend was low key into it. Like, she was okay with it, but I did not. I knew that was bad. I knew that was a really bad choice. So weird as fuck. He was down for a 16-year-old. So many people, but we sat out there until 6 a.m. again, so 12 hours, and found a bus, and we went home. And I don't think to this day that my friend's mother knows that ran away to New York, but I told my sister, and she snitched on me. And my dad was so pissed. He yelled at me and screamed at me, but it was a day before we were going to Las Vegas as a family. So I was saved by the bell in that sense, because my dad just wanted to go on his fucking vacation and have a good time. So I didn't really get in trouble for it, but I do have a great story to tell. And my dad and I joke about it all the time. So it's all good. But that's the time that I ran away to New York on the pretenses that I would become famous. It's just the funny things we do sometimes. That wasn't my last time running away. I ended up having some other fun trips that I did, and ended up getting in a lot more trouble for those instances. But we'll save those stories for another day. I was a really angsty teenager who just had a lust for life and wanted to see what was out there. Okay. But if you are 16 and you're watching this, you shouldn't be, but don't run away to New York. Find an older person who has a creative soul and a creative spirit, and learn from them. They will help you to they will help to guide you to a better outcome than I had. Okay, sluts. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. See you next week. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. As a reminder, we are now on Patreon. You can find us by typing in Saint Slut. You can also text me your thoughts, your confessions at 321-376-7588. If you want to hear more of Saint Slut's thoughts, you can find me on Substack at Saint Slut Pod. I'm also on Instagram at Saint__slut. You can also find me on TikTok at Saint_slut with a V. See you next week. Bye.